My name is Ethan Caldwell. 48 years old, structural engineer, divorced, 2 kids in college. I drive a beat-up 2009 Ford F-150 that leaks oil like it's marking territory. There's nothing remarkable about me. Except for one thing. My grandfather left me 52 acres of paid-off land in northern Colorado. No mortgage. No liens. No partners. Just land. He bought it in 1971, cash after coming back from Vietnam. The kind of man who trusted dirt more than banks. He kept records the way other men keep photo albums. Every tax receipt, every fence repair, every survey map tucked into leather folders that smelled like tobacco and machine oil. When he died, there was one handwritten note folded inside the deed. Don't let them take what's yours. I didn't visit the land for 3 years. Life got in the way. Divorce, tuition, bills, 70-hour work weeks. But I never stopped paying the property taxes. Not once, every April, on time. Digital receipts saved like insurance. In August 2022, I finally took time off to scatter my grandfather's ashes. I turned off Highway 36 onto the old fire road. And my stomach dropped so hard I had to pull over. The forest was gone. In its place stood an entire neighborhood. Paved streets. Street lights. Mailboxes already installed. 96 identical homes, beige stucco, fake balconies. Manicured lawns still smelling like fertilizer and money. A stone sign at the entrance read, Silver Ridge Estates. A Prescott Communities Development. I checked my GPS. Then checked it again. Same coordinates. Same parcel. My land. At the gatehouse, a security guard stepped out, hand resting casually near his radio. Residents only. I own this property, I said, holding up my phone with the deed pulled up. He smirked. Sure you do, turn around. Before I could argue, a black Range Rover rolled up behind me. Out stepped Vanessa Prescott. Mid-50s, perfect hair, designer sunglasses, the posture of someone who had never waited in line for anything important. She didn't look at me at first. Problem, Kyle? She asked the guard. This guy says he owns Silver Ridge. That finally got her attention. Her eyes scanned me, work boots, faded jacket, hands rough from real labor. She smiled. The kind of smile reserved for people she didn't consider real. Oh, how charming, she said. Sweetheart, if you're looking for construction work, all our crews are full. I'm not looking for work, I said. I'm the legal owner. Her smile sharpened. Our attorneys ran a forensic title search, she said calmly. This land was abandoned, adverse possession, completely legal. I paid the taxes, I said. That invalidates. That's adorable, she interrupted. You know just enough law to embarrass yourself. She handed me a business card like it was contaminated. Jonathan Hale, legal counsel. How many houses are sold? I asked. All of them, she replied smoothly. 16 million in pre-sales. Families move in next month. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She raised her phone and took a picture of my license plate. Just in case, she said softly, leaning in. You decide to vandalize anything. Her voice dropped. And trust me, people like you don't win against people like us. The sound of nail guns echoed behind her. Pop, 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 like a countdown. I drove away shaking. Not because I was scared, but because I knew something she didn't. They had built an entire neighborhood on land that still legally belonged to me. And I was about to decide whether to fight. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw beige houses where pine trees used to stand. Heard Vanessa Prescott's voice, calm, polished, certain I was already defeated. By morning, anger had settled into something colder. Focus. I spread my grandfather's documents across my kitchen table like evidence in a murder trial. The 1971 deed. 52 years of property tax receipts. Survey maps with handwritten notes in the margins. Even old photos, my grandfather standing next to boundary markers that still existed, buried somewhere beneath fresh concrete and sod. They hadn't just crossed a line. They'd bulldozed it. At 9:03 a.m. Monday, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Mr. Caldwell," a man said, voice smooth and rehearsed. "This is Jonathan Hale, legal counsel for Prescott Communities." Of course it was. "I'm listening," I said. "There seems to be confusion regarding Silver Ridge Estates," he began. "My client believes this can be resolved quickly and quietly." Quietly? That word always means someone's about to lose. "I'm the owner," I said. "There's no confusion." A pause, papers shifting. "Mr. Caldwell," Hale continued, "litigation is expensive, developers have resources, individuals often don't." There it was. The threat dressed up as advice. "We're prepared to offer you $20,000, he said, "in exchange for signing a quitclaim deed and relinquishing any alleged interest in the property." I laughed. I couldn't help it. $20,000, I repeated, "for land worth over $4 million. "Market value is irrelevant if your claim fails," he replied calmly. "And adverse possession law doesn't apply if I paid taxes," I cut in. Another pause. Longer this time. "You seem emotional," Hale said. "That's understandable, but emotions don't win cases." "No," I said quietly. "But documents do." His tone shifted just slightly. "If you proceed," he warned, "families will be caught in the middle. People with children, mortgages, life savings. Do you really want to be responsible for that?" That one landed. Because I'd already seen them. Minivans. Moving trucks. Kids riding scooters on streets that used to be mine. But something about the way he said it, like using them as a shield, made my jaw tighten. "I'll see you in court," I said. I hung up before he could respond. 10 minutes later, an email arrived. Subject, final settlement offer. Attached was a contract, already signed on their end. They weren't negotiating. They were counting on me being broke, scared, and alone. They got one thing right. I was alone. Which is why I made the hardest call of my life. Her office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building downtown. No glass walls, no motivational posters. Just wood, leather, and silence. Margaret Maggie Lawson. The kind of attorney other attorneys warn you about. Gray hair pulled tight, reading glasses on a chain, hands steady from decades of courtroom fights. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back and steepled her fingers. "You said you kept paying taxes?" she asked. "Yes." "Every year?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Then adverse possession dies on arrival." I exhaled for the first time in days. "But," she continued, "that doesn't mean they won't try to crush you anyway." I frowned. "How?" "Delay, intimidation, bankrupt you with motions and filings until you settle out of exhaustion." She slid a legal pad toward me. "Hear what they expect you to do," she said. "Panic, file an injunction, stop construction." "That's exactly what I was thinking," I admitted. She shook her head. "No." I blinked. "No. You stop construction now," she explained, "and Prescott Communities declares bankruptcy. Suddenly you're fighting banks, insurers, and 96 homeowners who think you ruined their lives." She leaned forward. "You don't want to fight 96 families." I swallowed. "So what do I do?" She didn't hesitate. "You let them finish." The words hit me like a slap. "Finish," I repeated. "They're stealing my land." "They already did," she said flatly. "The question is whether you want unfinished theft or finished fraud." I stared at her. "If they complete construction," she continued, "then sell homes on land they don't own, that's not a civil mistake. That's criminal behavior." My heart started pounding. "You file after completion," she said. "And when you do, you don't sue for land." She tapped the pad. "You sue for everything built on it." Silence filled the room. "You're telling me," I said slowly, To let them build 96 houses so I can own 96 houses. She smiled just barely. Now you're thinking like a survivor. I hired her that day. The retainer nearly wiped out my savings. She gave me 3 rules. 1, don't contact Prescott Communities again. 2, don't post online, not a word. 3, document everything. So I watched. Twice a week, I parked on a public road and filmed. Concrete poured. Frames went up. Landscaping crews planted trees that would never grow as tall as the ones they'd destroyed. One afternoon, Vanessa Prescott spotted my truck. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind me. "Sir," the deputy said, uncomfortable, "we've had a complaint." I smiled politely. "I'm documenting construction on land I own." He ran my plates. Came back quieter. "Look," he said, lowering his voice, "this is civil, but she's influential." I understood the translation. She had money. I didn't. Yet. As December rolled in, families moved into houses that technically belonged to me and didn't know it. I watched a couple carry a crib inside one of them. And that night, guilt sat heavier than fear. But Maggie was right. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ending a scam so big it thought it was untouchable. And they were about to learn. I had receipts. By January, Silver Ridge Estates looked finished. Lawns trimmed. Driveways sealed. Porch lights glowing warm at night like nothing was wrong. Families were settled in. Kids rode bikes where deer used to sleep. And every time I drove past, the weight in my chest got heavier, not because I was losing, but because they were getting desperate. The first attack didn't come from lawyers. It came from the county. Tuesday morning, 8:17 a.m. My phone rang while I was reviewing structural drawings at work. "Mr. Caldwell," a tired voice said, "this is Evan Brooks, Boulder County Code Enforcement." My stomach tightened. "We've received a complaint," he continued, "that you're operating an illegal dumping site on your property." I laughed out loud. "I don't even live there," I said. "I still need to inspect," he replied. "If violations are found, fines start at $500 per day." That afternoon, I drove up with my phone recording. The land was spotless. No debris. No junk. No hazardous waste. Just 96 houses that shouldn't exist. Brooks walked the perimeter slowly, clipboard in hand. Finally, he stopped and looked at me. "There's nothing here," he said. "This was a false report." I nodded. "Do you know who filed it?" He hesitated. Off the record, it came through Prescott Communities, labeled as a concerned citizen. Of course it did. Before leaving, he slipped me his card. "If you need a statement," he said quietly, "call me." That was the first crack. The second attack came louder. And public. My daughter Claire texted me at 11:42 p.m. "Dad, are you okay? Someone posted about you on Facebook." I opened the link. It was a community page for Silver Ridge. Pinned at the top. Written by Vanessa Prescott herself. Alert. A local man, Ethan Caldwell, has been loitering around our family neighborhood, photographing homes and children. He falsely claims ownership of Silver Ridge Estates. Authorities are aware. Please report any sightings and keep your family safe. I felt sick. The comments were worse. "Creep. Call the cops if you see him. Why is he taking pictures of kids?" Someone posted a photo of my truck. License plate visible. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. They weren't fighting my claim anymore. They were destroying my reputation. I called Maggie. She answered immediately. "I saw it," she said. "Do not respond." "She's calling me a predator," I said. "My kids are seeing this." "I know," she replied calmly, "and every word she typed is evidence." "It doesn't feel like evidence," I said. "It feels like my life's collapsing." Her voice softened. "This is what people do when they know they're losing." By morning, the post had been shared over 1,000 times. At work, people stopped making eye contact. My supervisor called me in. "Ethan," he said carefully, "a client raised concerns." I knew what that meant. 2 weeks paid leave. No promises beyond that. I walked out to the parking lot feeling radioactive. Like the whole world had decided who I was without asking me. That night, someone spray-painted pervert across my garage door. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with a baseball bat and waited for sounds that never came. January 9th, 3 days before my first court hearing. My son Luke called from his restaurant job, voice shaking. "Dad, a man came in asking about you." My heart dropped. "He said he was a private investigator," Luke continued. "Asked if you'd ever been violent, if there were incidents. Witness tampering. Intimidation. Criminal." Maggie's response was instant. "Good," she said when I told her. "They just committed a felony." "But my son could lose his job." "I know," she said, "and now they've given us leverage." That night, I got an email from the IRS. Notice of audit. Anonymous tip. Perfect timing. I forwarded it to Maggie. Her reply came back 1 line long. "They're panicking." 2 days later, someone broke into my house. Nothing stolen. No damage. Just a single sheet of paper on my kitchen table. Drop it or lose everything. The police took a report. No suspects. But my neighbor, a retired librarian who noticed everything, handed me a license plate number she'd written down. The car was registered to the same private investigator who'd questioned my son. Maggie filed emergency motions that night. Restraining orders. Defamation claims. Evidence preservation. By the time they realized what they'd done, it was too late. Because the final mistake wasn't intimidation. It was arrogance. They believed I'd break. Instead, I walked into court with a file so thick it needed its own chair. And when the judge opened it, the room went very, very quiet. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Room 3B. Hard wooden benches, fluorescent lights that made everyone look guilty or tired. I sat beside Maggie Lawson, my attorney, hands folded, heartbeat steady in a way that surprised me. Across the aisle sat Vanessa Prescott. Perfect posture, cream-colored suit, expensive watch catching the light every time she moved her wrist. Confidence, the kind built on believing consequences were for other people. The judge entered. Judge Elaine Ramirez. No patience, no tolerance for games. "Counsel," she said, flipping through her file, "I received a motion to dismiss filed at 4:58 p.m. Friday. Explain the timing." Vanessa's attorney, Jonathan Hale, stood. "Your Honor, we believe the plaintiff's claim is defective on its face. Prescott Communities acquired title through adverse possession due to abandonment." The judge didn't even look up. "Did the plaintiff pay property taxes?" Hale hesitated. "Well, yes, but—" "Then adverse possession fails under Colorado statute," Judge Ramirez cut in. "What else do you have?" I watched the color drain from Hale's face. The judge turned to Maggie. "Ms. Lawson." Maggie stood, calm, controlled. "Your Honor," she said, "we're not here to debate adverse possession." She opened her briefcase. "We're here because the defendants knowingly committed fraud." She handed a document to the clerk. "I'd like to introduce Exhibit A." Copies were passed around. One landed in front of Hale, another in front of Vanessa. And the moment she saw it, her smile vanished. Judge Ramirez adjusted her glasses. "What am I looking at?" Maggie didn't rush. "An internal email," she said, "sent by Daniel Prescott, managing partner at Prescott Capital, to the defendant Vanessa Prescott." My hands clenched. This was it. "The email is dated February 14th, 2022, Maggie continued, 6 months before construction began. The judge read silently. The room held its breath. Finally, she looked up. "Counsel," she said to Hale, Did you know about this email? Hale swallowed. No, Your Honors. Maggie's voice was razor sharp. It was produced in Discovery last week. Translation, you should have known. I leaned forward as Maggie slid me a copy. The subject line read, Ray Silver Ridge ownership risk. I read the words once. Then again. Then a third time. The Caldwell parcel is not abandoned. Owner has paid continuous property taxes since 2019. Adverse possession claim will not survive judicial review. However, if we file quickly, secure permits, and begin selling lots before any challenge, we can force a settlement or bury him in litigation costs. Worst case scenario, we complete construction, sell out, then let title insurers and bankruptcy court clean it up. We've done this before. My stomach dropped. They had known. From the beginning. Judge Ramirez set the paper down slowly. Mrs. Prescott, she said, is this email authentic? Vanessa's lips parted. Hale grabbed her arm. Your Honor, we need time to consult with our client. The judge's eyebrow rose. That won't be necessary. She closed the folder. Hear what's going to happen. The words fell like stones. Motion to dismiss is denied. This case is expedited to full trial. Vanessa's hands were shaking now. In the meantime, the judge continued, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. She looked directly at Vanessa. Prescott Communities will immediately cease all sales, marketing, and transfers related to Silver Ridge Estates. Vanessa went pale. And the judge added, any further harassment, online posts, false reports, or intimidation directed at Mr. Caldwell will result in contempt proceedings. Her voice hardened. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor, Vanessa whispered. The gavel struck. It was over, and it had only just begun. Outside the courtroom, Maggie exhaled. That email, she said, came from a former business partner they burned on another project. He'd been waiting for revenge. I looked back at the courtroom doors. For months, I'd felt hunted. Small, powerless. Now the balance had shifted. The predators had been exposed, and everyone could see their teeth. That night, I sat on my porch watching snow fall. For the first time since August, I slept without the bat beside me. But Maggie's final text before midnight reminded me. This goes criminal next. And desperate people do desperate things. The restraining order hit Prescott Communities like a silent bomb. No press release. No announcement. Just doors closing. Sales offices went dark overnight. Listing pages vanished. Phones stopped getting answered. And that's when the fear spread. It didn't start with Vanessa. It started with the homeowners. My inbox filled up within hours. Subject lines stacked like panic attacks. Please help. Are we losing our home? We didn't know. The first call I answered was from a woman named Linda Morales. Her voice cracked halfway through the first sentence. Mr. Caldwell, my husband and I used our entire savings for the down payment. We have 2 kids. If you win, are we going to be evicted? I closed my eyes. No, I said, you won't lose your home. But the internet says. The internet doesn't know the truth yet, I said, and I promise you you're not the enemy. By noon, the local real estate blogs had picked it up. Luxury developer accused of selling homes on disputed land. By evening, it was everywhere. Then my phone rang again. Maggie Lawson, my attorney said, voice sharp. Pack a lunch, we're going public. Channel 7 Denver arrived at my house 2 days later. The reporter, Rachel Moore, shook my hand like she meant it. I've been covering real estate for 15 years, she said. This is the most brazen case I've ever seen. The camera lights were hot. Too bright. Rachel asked about my grandfather. The land. The moment I found the neighborhood. I didn't speak like a victim. I spoke like a man who'd been forced to become dangerous. These families were lied to, I said into the lens. So was I. The difference is, I kept my receipts. That clip led the evening news. By morning, my name wasn't trending as a threat anymore. It was trending as the man who caught a developer stealing land. Vanessa Prescott released a statement that afternoon, called the allegations misleading, blamed a clerical error, promised to cooperate fully. The comment section ate her alive. Former contractors started coming forward. Unpaid invoices, rushed permits, pressure to move fast and ask forgiveness later. Then Maggie called. "They want to settle," she said. "How much?" I asked. She laughed. "Not enough." That same night, I attended a town hall meeting at Silver Ridge Estates. The room was packed. Families standing shoulder to shoulder. Fear, anger, confusion hanging thick in the air. I stood at the front. Not as an owner. Not as a threat. As a man who understood what it meant to almost lose everything. "I'm not here to take your homes," I said. "I'm here to make sure the people who lied to you never do this again." A murmur ran through the room. Someone asked the question everyone was afraid to say. What happens if the developer goes bankrupt? Maggie stepped forward. "Then we make sure the homes are protected," she said calmly, "and the fraud is prosecuted." That's when applause broke out. Not polite applause. Relief. Hope. Vanessa didn't show. But her husband did. Daniel Prescott sat in the back, arms crossed, jaw tight, watching his empire burn. 2 days later, Maggie deposed him. 45 minutes. That's all it took. By the end, his lawyer was whispering numbers. Big ones. Federal ones. That night, Maggie called me with a tone I hadn't heard before. "They flipped," she said. "Who?" "The title company, the lender, everyone." I sat down. "They admitted they knew the claim was bad," she continued, "and they're cooperating to save themselves." "What does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "this is no longer just about land." She paused. "It's about prison." I stared at the wall. For months, I'd felt hunted. Now, they were running. Trial day didn't feel real. It felt staged. News vans lined the courthouse steps before sunrise. Camera lenses pointed like weapons. Reporters whispering, waiting for someone to slip. Inside, courtroom 3B was packed. Homeowners from Silver Ridge. Former contractors. 2 investigative journalists scribbling notes like they already knew how this ended. And at the defense table, Vanessa Prescott. For the first time, she didn't look untouchable. Her hands trembled when she lifted her water glass. Her eyes darted toward the exits like she was calculating distances. Judge Ramirez entered exactly at 9:00 a.m. No delay. No small talk. "Let's proceed," she said. Maggie stood for opening statements. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She simply told the truth. "This case," she said, "is not about a misunderstanding, it's about a decision." She held up a printed copy of the email. A decision to build first, sell fast, and bury the rightful owner under legal costs. She turned toward the gallery. And a decision to sacrifice innocent families as collateral damage. Vanessa stared straight ahead. The defense tried. They always do. They blamed consultants. They blamed title companies. They blamed complexity. Judge Ramirez wasn't buying it. Then Maggie called the first witness. Mark Ellison, senior officer at Rocky Peak Title. He sat down pale, already defeated. "Did you approve the title clearance for Silver Ridge Estates?" Maggie asked. "Yes." "Were you aware that Ethan Caldwell had paid property taxes continuously?" "Yes." A murmur rippled through the room. "Why did you approve it anyway?" Ellison swallowed. "Mr. Prescott encouraged us to proceed." "Encouraged how?" Ellison hesitated. Judge Ramirez leaned forward. "Answer the question." Ellison exhaled. "There was a payment," he said, $45,000. The room went silent. Vanessa's head snapped up. "Thank you," Maggie said gently. "No further questions." The defense objected. Overruled. Next witness. Evan Brooks, code enforcement. He testified about the false complaints. The pattern. The pressure. Then came the private investigator. Thomas Reed. The man who'd questioned my son. He didn't last 10 minutes. By the end, Maggie had him admitting, on record, that he'd been hired directly by Prescott Communities to dig up leverage. That word echoed. Leverage. Finally, Maggie called Vanessa Prescott. Her attorney stood immediately. "My client invokes the Fifth Amendment." Judge Ramirez nodded once. "Noted." That alone spoke volumes. Then Maggie turned. "Your Honor, we call Daniel Prescott." Vanessa's husband froze. He took the stand. Sweat beaded at his temples. Maggie didn't rush him. She walked him through his own email. Line by line. "You wrote, 'We've done this before.' What did you mean?" Daniel shifted. "Previous developments. Where adverse possession claims failed." "Yes. And you proceeded anyway." "Yes. Because you believed," Maggie said calmly, "that the plaintiff wouldn't be able to afford the fight." Daniel said nothing. Silence. Judge Ramirez removed her glasses. "I've heard enough," she said. Court adjourned for recess. When we returned, the courtroom felt different. Heavier. Judge Ramirez read her ruling slowly. Deliberately, the defendants engaged in a calculated, systematic scheme to defraud. Each word struck like a hammer. This court awards full title of the property, including all improvements to the plaintiff. Gasps. Damages in the amount of $4.6 million. More gasps. Legal fees to be paid in full by the defendants. Vanessa stared at the floor. "And this matter," the judge concluded, "is referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution." The gavel fell. It was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "How does it feel?" someone shouted. I looked at the sky. Clear blue. "It feels," I said slowly, "like the truth finally caught up." But victory came with a new problem. 96 families. Homes built on my land. And a decision only I could make. Winning felt quiet. No fireworks. No sudden relief. Just the weight of reality settling in. By law, I now owned everything. 52 acres. 96 completed houses. Roads, utilities, clubhouse shell. The court had handed me a fortune. And 96 lives were holding their breath, waiting to see what I'd do with it. My phone rang nonstop for days. Real estate agents. Developers. Investors with confident voices and aggressive numbers. One offered $18 million cash to buy everything and evict the families within 60 days. Another suggested turning the homes into short-term rentals. Completely legal, he said, and incredibly profitable. I hung up. That night, I drove to Silver Ridge alone. No cameras. No lawyers. Just me and the quiet hum of people living their lives. I saw a man teaching his daughter how to ride a bike. A couple unloading groceries. Porch lights glowing against the dark. This wasn't just property. It was people. I thought about my grandfather. A man who paid cash for land because he didn't trust systems designed to crush regular folks. And I knew exactly what I had to do. The town hall was scheduled for March 12th. All 96 families were invited. Every seat in the unfinished clubhouse was filled. Fear hung heavy. They expected eviction notices. They expected lawsuits. I stood at the front with Maggie beside me. "I know you're scared," I began, "and I won't pretend this hasn't been a nightmare." A woman in the front row clutched her husband's hand. "But you did nothing wrong," I continued. "You were lied to just like I was." Murmurs spread. "So here's my decision," The room went silent. I'm transferring ownership of all 96 homes into a community land trust. Confusion. Whispers. The trust will hold the land, I explained, and each family will own their home outright at the price you already paid. Gasps. No new mortgages, no interest, no hidden fees. A woman burst into tears. If you've paid in full, I said, you owe nothing more. Applause started, then stopped as people tried to understand what they were hearing. The trust will cover property taxes, road maintenance, and legal protections, and any remaining funds will go toward community upkeep. An elderly man stood up, voice shaking. Why would you do this? I didn't answer right away. My grandfather believed land was about legacy, I said finally, not profit. The room erupted. People hugged, cried, thanked strangers. I stepped back and let it happen. The fallout was immediate. Investors called me an idiot. Comment sections exploded. Some praised me. Others said I'd wasted a fortune. Then the letters arrived. Handwritten. From families. From people who'd been sleeping with fear in their chests for months. One included a child's drawing. A house. A son. Stick figures holding hands. On the back it read, "Thank you for not making us move." I pinned it to my fridge. But peace never lasts long when powerful people lose. Vanessa Prescott took a plea deal 2 weeks later. 3 years probation. Permanent ban from real estate development. $500,000 in restitution. Her husband wasn't as lucky. Federal fraud charges. Indictment. The title company lost its license. The private investigator did too. One by one, the system corrected itself. Slowly, painfully, but it corrected. And for the first time since this began, I slept. Spring came quietly to Silver Ridge. Snow melted off rooftops. Lawns turned green. Kids left bikes scattered across driveways like proof that life had resumed. From the outside, you'd never guess what almost happened there. What almost happened to me. I kept 5 acres at the north end of the land, the part my grandfather refused to sell even when timber prices were high. Old-growth pines, uneven ground, no curb appeal. I built a small cabin there. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a porch, windows facing east. Every morning, I drink coffee while the sun filters through trees that are older than my last name. Sometimes deer wander through. Sometimes it's quiet enough that I can hear my own thoughts again. That's when the weight of it all finally hit me. Not the money, not the court victory, but how close I came to losing everything, not because I was wrong, but because I wasn't powerful. If I hadn't kept receipts, if I hadn't found the right lawyer, if I'd panicked when they wanted me to, they would have gotten away with it. And no one would have known. The William Caldwell Community Trust officially launched in September. The homeowners elected their own board. No HOA tyrants. No intimidation. No secret deals. Just neighbors. We set aside funds for maintenance, legal defense, and something my grandfather would have appreciated most. A scholarship. Every year, one student from the community receives $10,000 to study engineering, environmental science, or land management. Claire helped design the application. Luke cooks the food for the award dinner every summer. Life moved forward, but the messages didn't stop. Emails, comments, DMs, stories that sounded uncomfortably familiar. HOAs abusing power. Developers cutting corners. Regular people being told to sit down and accept it. One message stuck with me. I thought I was crazy until I heard your story. That's why I'm telling this. Not because I won, but because I almost didn't. Hear what I learned. Power counts on silence, on exhaustion, on you giving up because fighting costs too much. They assume you won't keep records, won't read fine print, won't push back, and most of the time, they're right. But every system has a weakness, and it's usually paper. Receipts, emails, tax records. Truth leaves a trail. You just have to follow it longer than they expect you to. Vanessa Prescott disappeared from the spotlight. No interviews. No statements. Just another name people stopped Googling once the news cycle moved on. Her husband is still fighting charges. Still convinced the rules shouldn't apply to him. They always are. Me, I'm still just a structural engineer with an old truck. Still paying tuition bills. Still trying to live a quiet life. The only difference is, I don't assume the system will protect me anymore. I protect myself. So if you're watching this and you've ever dealt with a corrupt HOA, a property dispute, a developer who thought money made them untouchable, or a system that treated you like collateral damage, you're not alone, and you're not powerless. Drop your story in the comments. Not to vent, but to document. Because someone else might need to hear it the way you needed to hear this. And if this story kept you watching until the end, if it reminded you that regular people can win when they refuse to disappear, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. I share stories like this every week. Stories about receipts, about patience, about outlasting people who think they're above consequences. Next week, the city tried to shut down my cabin. They didn't expect me to read the zoning code. See you then. And remember, keep every receipt. All of them.